The cicadas were screaming their late summer symphony, a relentless, buzzing chorus that seemed to vibrate through the very asphalt of Magnolia Creek Estates. It was a sound that usually lulled me into a kind of resigned acceptance of the sweltering heat, but today, it was a discordant backdrop to the chaos that was unfolding in my driveway. I stood, arms crossed, a grim tableau against the backdrop of my once smooth, now cratered driveway, watching as Karen, the self-appointed queen bee of the Magnolia Creek Homeowners Association, oversaw the excavation with a disturbingly gleeful expression. Karen, a woman whose platinum blonde hair was perpetually sculpted into a helmet-like confection, and whose designer sunglasses could deflect the sun's rays and any semblance of human empathy, had decided my driveway was an eyesore. Apparently, a few hairline cracks and a slight dip near the garage entrance were enough to warrant her intervention, or rather, her corrective action, as she'd put it in her shrill, nasal voice. "It's simply unacceptable, Patricia," she declared, her manicured finger jabbing at the offending cracks as if they were festering wounds. "The aesthetic integrity of Magnolia Creek must be upheld. This driveway reflects poorly on the entire community." I tried to reason with her, explaining that the cracks were minor, a natural consequence of settling, and that I'd planned to have them addressed in the fall. But Karen was impervious to reason, a force of nature driven by an insatiable need to control every aspect of her meticulously curated suburban life. She'd waved a sheaf of HOA bylaws in my face, citing obscure clauses about property maintenance standards and community aesthetics. "The HOA has the authority to take corrective measures," she'd stated, her lips pursed in a thin, triumphant line. "And we've decided that your driveway requires immediate attention." That immediate attention had materialized in the form of a jackhammer-wielding crew, dispatched by Karen without so much as a "by your leave." I'd watched in horror as they descended upon my driveway, tearing into the asphalt with a ferocity that seemed wildly disproportionate to the task at hand. The air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of hot asphalt, and the relentless hammering reverberated through my house, shaking the windows and rattling the china in my cabinets. "This is ridiculous, Karen," I'd shouted over the din, my voice hoarse with frustration. "You can't just demolish my driveway without consulting me." "Consulting you?" she'd scoffed, her eyes narrowing behind her designer sunglasses. "The HOA has made its decision. We're simply implementing it." And so, I stood there, a powerless observer in the demolition of my own property, while Karen directed the crew with the enthusiasm of a general leading her troops into battle. She seemed to relish the chaos, the power she wielded, the way the workers jumped at her every command. She was a conductor of destruction, and my driveway was her unwitting symphony. The jackhammering continued, the rhythmic pounding a relentless assault on my nerves. The crew, a motley bunch of burly men in faded work shirts and dusty jeans, seemed oblivious to my distress, their faces set in expressions of bored indifference. They were just doing their job, following orders, and I was just another homeowner, another obstacle in the path of Karen's relentless pursuit of suburban perfection. As the afternoon wore on, the crater in my driveway grew larger and deeper. The crew had unearthed not only the asphalt but also the gravel base, leaving a gaping hole that resembled a miniature construction site. I watched, a growing sense of dread creeping into my heart, as they began to dig deeper, their jackhammers biting into the earth with renewed vigor. It was then that I noticed a faint, acrid smell, a sharp, metallic tang that mingled with the dust and the heat. It was a smell I recognized, a smell that sent a chill down my spine, the unmistakable odor of natural gas. "Stop!" I yelled, my voice cracking with panic. "Stop digging! I smell gas!" The crew looked up, their faces registering a flicker of concern. But Karen, ever the dismissive one, waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense, Patricia," she said, her voice laced with condescension. "You're imagining things. It's probably just the heat." "No, I'm serious," I insisted, my heart pounding in my chest. "I smell gas. You have to stop." But Karen was unmoved. She gave the crew a curt nod, signaling them to continue. And so, they did, their jackhammers resuming their relentless pounding. A moment later, there was a sharp, metallic clang, followed by a whoosh of escaping gas. The crew scrambled back, their eyes wide with alarm. Karen's face, usually so composed, was now a mask of fear. "What have you done?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The answer came in the form of a deafening explosion, a blinding flash of light that sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The ground shook, the windows rattled, and the air was filled with the roar of flames. The gas line, buried beneath my driveway, had been ruptured by the jackhammer, and the escaping gas had ignited, creating a fiery inferno that engulfed the entire area. The crew scattered, their faces blackened with soot, their clothes singed. Karen stood frozen, her eyes wide with terror, her designer sunglasses shattered. The explosion had ripped through the quiet serenity of Magnolia Creek, shattering the illusion of suburban tranquility that Karen had worked so hard to maintain. The flames leaped and danced, casting an eerie glow on the manicured lawns and the perfectly symmetrical houses. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning asphalt and scorched earth. The neighbors emerged from their houses, their faces a mixture of fear and confusion. Some ran towards the flames, armed with garden hoses and buckets of water, while others called 911, their voices trembling with panic. The fire department arrived, their sirens wailing, their trucks roaring. They battled the flames with fierce determination, their hoses spraying a torrent of water onto the inferno. The flames, however, were relentless, fueled by the escaping gas, and it took hours to bring them under control. When the smoke finally cleared, the damage was extensive. My driveway was a blackened crater, the asphalt melted and charred. The front of my house was scorched, the windows shattered, the siding warped. The surrounding lawns were blackened, the landscaping reduced to ashes. But the damage extended beyond my property. The explosion had sent shockwaves through the neighborhood, cracking foundations, shattering windows, and damaging gas lines in other homes. The once pristine streets of Magnolia Creek were now littered with debris, a testament to the destructive power of Karen's arrogance. The aftermath was a whirlwind of chaos and recrimination. The fire department, the gas company, and the police descended upon Magnolia Creek, their presence a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation. Karen, her face pale and drawn, was questioned by the authorities, her carefully constructed facade of control crumbling before their relentless scrutiny. The neighbors, once so deferential to Karen's authority, now glared at her with undisguised anger. They blamed her for the explosion, for the damage to their homes, for the disruption of their lives. They accused her of recklessness, of negligence, of putting her own vanity above the safety of the community. The HOA, once a bastion of Karen's power, was now a battleground of accusations and recriminations. The other members, horrified by the consequences of Karen's actions, demanded her resignation. They accused her of exceeding her authority, of acting without due diligence, of jeopardizing the safety of the entire neighborhood. Karen, stripped of her power, her authority shattered, was left a pariah, shunned by the very community she had sought to control. She was a fallen queen, her reign of terror brought to an abrupt and ignominious end. As for me, I was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild my driveway, to repair the damage to my house. The explosion had taken a toll, not just on my property, but on my sense of security, on my trust in the community. I was left with a lingering sense of unease, a feeling that the quiet serenity of Magnolia Creek had been irrevocably shattered. The cicadas continued their relentless symphony, their buzzing a constant reminder of the chaos that had unfolded. But now, their song seemed less like a celebration of summer and more like a lament for the loss of innocence, for the destruction of a once peaceful neighborhood. The incident was a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, of the consequences of arrogance and hubris. It was a lesson learned at a high price, a price paid in shattered windows, scorched lawns, and a community's shattered trust. And it was all because of Karen, the HOA Karen, who thought she could jackhammer her way to suburban perfection, and who, in her blind pursuit of control, had nearly blown up the entire neighborhood.